All right, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Inquisitive Man podcast. My first guest is actually a man that I met on social media. We've never actually met in person in real life, but we've had several conversations online on Facebook. And he likes to talk about World War II quite a bit. His name is Tom Carreiro. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Tom.
Yes, it is.
So I approached you about coming on and having a conversation with me because we've had several conversations online, and they seem to be pretty interesting most of the time. And it seems like this is something you're very passionate about. So why don't we start? You can kind of tell me a little bit about what is it about World War II that interests you so much, and what are some interesting facts about it that you feel like people should know?
Well, I love history in general, so that's just one part of it. But I got, like studying the Nazis more. Was after watching a PBS special with Robert Clary, who played LeBeau on Hogan's Heroes. He's a Jew, and he was in Buchenwald death camp, the concentration camp, and it was very heartbreaking seeing somebody that you loved as a child crying his eyes out. As soon as he went to that area, he broke down. So I knew about the Holocaust, but it made me very passionate about the Holocaust. Then I watched every history program back when the History Channel used to play history programs, and A&E. They had A&E biography. I did every history program, World at War. David L. Wolfer presents. It was documentaries by him. But I had already read books before, like Inside the Third Reich by Albert Speer. But it became more of a passion because it was the horror of what the Nazis had done. It was systematic. The history has always been full of atrocities, but this one it was like an industrialized, systematic murdering of people. So that's what got me into it, especially like with the Nazis. And how could people rise to power? Germany was one of the greatest countries in the world. It's known for Wagner, Bach, Beethoven. Mozart's from Austria, but it's from that kind of group. And Nietzsche and all these other great scientists and intellectuals, and they de-evolved to mass murder. So that's what I got into it.
If I'm correct, the Nazis actually used a lot of Nietzsche's ideas to try to justify some of their actions.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. They also perverted Darwinism. Darwin was a big one. People think that the Nazis were just a bunch of thugs. The brown shirts, known as the stormtroopers, led by Ernst Röhm, they were the beer hall bullies. But most of the members of the Nazi Party, they were not stupid people. They were not the ignorant morons. They justified their actions through scientists, and even based on some of their ideas on American policies, believe it or not.
American eugenics program.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with that. I mean, we actually had a eugenics program here in the United States, which was supposedly in place to like sterilize undesirables, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like people who are maybe had certain mental disorders and things like that.
Right. Yep, that's exactly what it was.
And the Nazis actually praised the American eugenics program and based their eugenics program off of ours, from what I understand.
Yes, and also they took from the Jim Crow laws, they took a little bit of that to separate the Jews from the rest of society after they took over.
Yeah. So basically, it interests you so much because of basically all. There's a lot. It's very complex, and it interests you because of you're fascinated as how these people were able to take power and how they were able to do the things they were able to do.
How do you manipulate intelligent people into following you to the brink of disaster? But there's certain things that they do. Propaganda, number one. And there's many things that the Nazis had done. What people don't realize, the Germans lost World War I not by a military defeat. Their economy collapsed. And that's what happened. Because Germany had the worst economy in the 1920s. There are playwrights like Bertolt Brecht wrote the Three Penny Opera during that time period. Kurt Weill was another. I think he was a musician, like a composer, and he would work with that guy too. And but it's tough because they didn't lose. It was the trench warfare was a stalemate. So they didn't lose due to a military defeat. It was the economic collapse, and then now the banks refused to lend more money to the war effort, and that's key because many of the bankers and banks were Jews. And that's how Hitler really worked up the people against the Jews. If you look at his stuff in Mein Kampf or his early speeches, he rails against the bankers, just like we do today. And the bankers are responsible for most of the depressions and recessions in our country's history. It's amazing what the banks have done. Andrew Jackson, I think he's not. He's one of my least favorite presidents, but he was right about the banking system. But
I
so
do
now what
remember
happened was,
him saying
uh,
something along the lines that basically that the nation would be in great peril or something if the banks ever got control. He was for the federal government having control over the currency rather than what we
right,
have now with the Federal Reserve, which is basically a bunch of large banks that control the printing of
right.
money.
The Federal Reserve is not even a government program; it's
No.
a private industry.
Yeah.
That's the funny part. But now with this, the Nazis targeted the banks because they blamed the banks for not lending more money. But trench warfare, it's a stalemate. You're not going to win. There's nothing they could have done.
Yeah.
So when they lost the war, Hitler blamed it on the Jews, and he didn't like the Jews anyways. The Jews were scapegoats in Europe for centuries. There were many pogroms in Russia and everywhere else in Europe. They weren't, and then during the Black Plague, they went after Jews. They targeted Jews. They thought the Jews were performing black magic to bring the plague on everybody. So that's what happened there. But now what Hitler did to rise to power, he promised people free food. He promised them government jobs. He promised them healthcare, free healthcare, and which he delivered on all of them. The free healthcare system in Germany was dropped after the economic collapse of World War One, but it was originally established by Otto von Bismarck in
And
1893.
it's
So Hitler didn't create the free healthcare system, but he put it back into place
it's
to help the
interesting
people.
that you mentioned that because there's a lot of seems like there's a lot of arguing online on YouTube and in social media about what exactly a Nazi is because you're talking about all these big social programs. That sounds pretty left wing to me, but a lot of
Hey,
people will
what?
also point to the Nazis as being a right wing. A right wing ideology. So, what
I
exactly is a Nazi? Are they left wing? Are they right wing? Are they
All right.
socialists? I mean, they're National Socialist German Workers' Party, right?
They were socialists, and that was even in books written before Bush became W. Bush, that is, became president. Irish Chang's The Rape of Nanking, the hero of Nanking, that set up an international safety zone, was the vice president of the Nazi Party of China, a man by the name of John Rabe. And he was asked by a Japanese major who was assigned to protect him because Germany and Japan were still allies at the time. This was before World War II. This was in 1937, and it was an 8-week period where the Japanese slaughtered supposedly 200,000 Chinese. And raped like 80,000 women. So John Rabe told him, the Germans are socialists. We are defenders of the people. And we're going to defend my people, and I'm not going to abandon my workers at their most dire time. And that's why he did that. He was a hardcore socialist. Even his daughter was interviewed by Irish Chang, and she asked him, how could he defend the Chinese and still be a Nazi? And the daughter said he never subscribed to the racist attitudes of the Nazis, just the socialist views of the
Yeah, I think
Nazis.
a lot of
So
the reason
that's
why
it.
people consider the Nazis right wing or why they look at them that way is because of the nationalism. And nationalism
Right.
tends to have an association with the right wing versus the left wing.
Yep. But I find that interesting too, because that is the system. But why can't left-wing people be nationalistic? Why can't they take pride in their country? So I don't know if nationalism is either left or right, because that's like saying somebody is, if you're left-wing, you're not as patriotic. So I mean, there are a lot of patriots on the left. Come on, our founding fathers were left-wingers.
It's actually funny
of their
that
time.
you mentioned that, because that brings me to another point I wanted to talk to you about. Is you were talking about you just mentioned, well, left wing people can't be patriotic. I don't know if you saw this story the other day. I was reading this online that there was this gentleman who was at this patriotic event. It was supposed to be like a right wing nationalist event, and this person who was actually left wing showed up with an American flag, and the point he was trying to make was that the Democrats and people on the left can be patriotic as well, and that basically not just
Right.
Right-wing people are patriotic. But it's funny because he was actually attacked by Antifa and had to go to the hospital, and they assumed that he was some sort of right-wing nationalist bigot or something like that, or fascist. And they attacked him and beat the crap out of this guy because he had an American flag. And I thought it was pretty funny that they targeted this guy, and he was actually a lefty.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's not the first time that's happened. That there was people that were Bernie Sanders supporters, and they got attacked. Because that's the thing that I don't like about Antifa. They're I don't know. They really don't know what it is. Like the Nazi policies, and I wrote a list of Nazi policies and the candidates who supported that. Socialist economic views. Bernie Sanders and Hillary to a lesser extent, because she is in the pocket of corporation. High taxes. Bernie and Hillary. High government regulations. Bernie and Hillary. Demonize the wealthy. And Hitler did do that. He railed against them, because how do you get people that are poor to get on your side? You don't praise the rich. You prey on their anxieties. So it was Hillary and Bernie. Say that they are the friend of the workers. Bernie, Hillary, and Trump's done that too. Because Trump's, with the coal miners, I'm your friend. So Trump did it too. Give government assistance to the poor. Bernie and Hillary. Welfare system. The Nazis had welfare before LBJ installed it, because the man who wrote Inside the Third Reich was a member of Hitler's inner circle by the name of Albert Speer. He designed the Berchtesgaden. I probably mispronounced that, but that big palace that Hitler had. But then he was in charge of the munitions making, and he was jailed for 20 years for using slave labor. So when he got out, he wrote this book. And he talked about having to make speeches to the industrialists, aka the corporations, that after World War II is done, they were going to get rid of the socialist policies and the welfare system. All right, free healthcare. Bernie and Hillary. Blame others for country's economic woes. Bernie blames the 1%. Hillary blames the 1%. Trump blames illegal immigrants. So all three of them have that.
Yeah.
Blame the economics problems on the banks. That would be Bernie. And Hillary's done it on occasions, but she's in bed with them too. They want a strong military. Hillary and Trump. They both want that. Want to interfere with foreign countries. Hillary and Trump. Want to condition children into thinking that the way they want them to think. Bernie and Hillary. The left is definitely good for that. They're always, they're forcing their beliefs on children in school. Want the people to turn to the government for moral and spiritual guidance instead of religion. The Nazis were in the process of creating the Church of Nazism. The Nazis, during their rise to power, claimed to be Christians, but the members of the Nazi hierarchy were occultists. That's why the Nazi symbol is a pagan symbol. You go to the East, the swastika is a symbol of peace. It's in Buddhism, it's in Hinduism, and it's in many of those Eastern religions.
They have it all over India, like on old
Right.
Old buildings that they have there in ruins and stuff like that. They have swastikas all over the place on like old Hindu temples and things. Yeah, I've seen pictures
and the
of
Nazis,
it. Or even in different like East Asian countries, they have swastikas on all sorts of old like artifacts, and even on money, things like that. They have the swastika, but it's the normal swastika. The Nazis used a reverse swastika, to my understanding.
All their ceremonies were occult. The SS was a blood ceremony. They had to cut their palms of their hands. It was a blood ceremony. That's not Christian. This is stuff that, that's the occult. So the Nazis, the actual party members themselves, the ruling members, were occultists.
It reminds
And
me
they
of
also
the spirit
were forming
cooking
the Church
thing.
of Nazism.
Do you remember there was a scandal that was talked about online for a while after during the election, after the DNC was hacked, and everybody was talking about spirit cooking. I don't know if you remember that. No.
What was that? I couldn't hear you.
During the election, there was after the DNC was hacked, and people were talking about spirit cooking.
Oh, yes.
People in the government were performing like satanic rituals.
Yes, John Podesta. Yep,
Yeah.
that thing. Yeah, that's pretty laughable. Dude, those emails were interesting. But now the Nazis, they were forming their own church. Reich Chancellor Martin Bormann was in charge of that. The Reich Chancellor used to be known as Deputy Führer, but when Rudolf Hess went to Scotland and parachuted to try to sue for peace, Hitler was so enraged, he didn't get rid of the position, but he renamed the position. So Martin Bormann was in charge of that. So now that they were definitely not, they didn't love Christians. They executed 500 Catholic priests.
Yeah.
In their concentration camps and in their hit squads called the Einsatzgruppe. All right, now let's see. What else do they have? Insult and demonize groups of people they don't like. Bernie demonizes the 1%. Hillary calls Trump supporters deplorables. Bernie's supporters basement dwellers. Young black men super predators, but I'm going to be nice about it. She was talking about gang members, and I got to be fair. Just like when Trump called MS-13 gang members animals, he wasn't talking about Mexicans per se, but he was talking about the gang members. So Hillary was talking about black gang members, so it wasn't like regular black people. Now the DNC referred to Latinos as taco bowls. That was in the leaked emails that Facebook and Twitter had blocked, but I had seen them before they got blocked. And Trump, he goes after Muslims and illegal immigrants. That's who he likes to bash.
Well, there's
Control
obviously
over the media, Hillary. Hillary has control over the media. They were working with the DNC and her staff because that was in the DNC leaked emails that are being blocked. MSNBC, NBC, CNN, Politico, and the Washington Post were all named, and they were sharing emails with each other how to cover each candidate and what did they want Hillary to do, to do.
I remember
it's
reading
in the
that.
emails.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you're going through this list, but I mean, I don't think it's reasonable. I mean, obviously, you're pointing out parallels, and people do this all the time. I've seen people point out parallels, Trump to Nazism or Hitler, and then people comparing Obama to Hitler when he was president. And I personally find it to be a little bit ridiculous, the comparisons back and forth. But obviously, you're making this list, but it almost seems to me like you're just kind of making the comparisons almost tongue in cheek, just kind of to show that you can kind of draw parallels.
Right.
Wherever.
What I'm trying to do is to show people, how did Hitler get into power? He won people over by doing all these things. And that is how he got into power. He didn't get into power by yelling about Jews, I want to exterminate. He never told people he was going to exterminate Jews. He did all of this to get into power.
But you don't think that, people people on the left and right in this country, but politicians like in the DNC and the GOP, that they're actually Nazi-like?
No, but what the Nazis did was use regular political means. The Nazis used, things that all politicians had done in the past, and that's how they did it. Yep. So, like saying the Nazis weren't this separate group that did something completely different than anybody else. No, they did what everybody else did. The communists, what do? The same thing. They did the same. Most politicians, that's what they do. That's how you work people over.
Yeah. So, what do you think about Donald Trump? Do you think he's a Nazi? Do you think he's a racist?
Not a Nazi. I'm not sure about the racist part because I'm going to tell you why. Puerto Rico did it for me. He did send help, and the Puerto Rican government was a complete failure. But the thing is, he kicked them when they were down. He made the comment, "Hey, this is costing us a lot of money, and we're helping you out." I mean, You don't. You're a leader. You're supposed to inspire people. You're supposed to tell them we're here for you. We're gonna take care of you. Don't worry about it. We're here. And what did he do? Well, oh, I'm gonna send you the stuff, but you owe us. This is a lot of money, and you're putting us out. He didn't do that to Houston when they
Yeah.
sent stuff over there, and it's just certain things like he refuses to condemn the white supremacists flat out. He had to be goaded into doing that. He did condemn them on a number of occasions, but he wasn't quick to complain about it. But yet he calls football players sons of bitches without a drop of a hat.
It
So
seems
you
to me
kind of
like
wonder,
Donald Trump.
what is it with him?
It seems to me
I'm
like
not
he
sure.
just he has a hard time calling anybody out that actually is nice to him or likes him. It
Yeah.
seems to me like he's an egotist, and even if the
Yes.
person who
Yeah.
likes him or says something nice about him isn't particularly savory, that he doesn't like to speak ill of people who show him praise.
I think so.
Even if they deserve
That's
to
it.
be called out. I think he's full of himself, and he just likes people liking him. He likes to be liked. Well, that's
Yep.
my opinion. But so you don't think that he's a Nazi or a racist? You just
He's
or you're
definitely
not sure
not
if
a
he's
Nazi. The racist thing, that the jury's out on that. I am not sure because he has shown some things
I
that
don't know if he's a racist per
No.
se, but I would say maybe prejudice or maybe
Yeah.
a little bit ignorant.
yeah, a whole lot.
Because I don't know if he particularly hates people of color or hates other groups of people, but I think maybe he is very racially insensitive. Like he doesn't know.
Yes.
He phrases things
He's just
poorly.
insensitive to everybody. Let's face it. He
Yeah.
called when Megyn Kelly asked him, "I heard you call women dogs." Then he stopped and he didn't even deny it. It's like only Rosie O'Donnell, and he got a big laugh out of that during the debate. So
Yeah.
he's insensitive to everybody.
What basically, I mean, we're kind of coming towards the point in the conversation where the reason why I wanted to have you on was because obviously you're very interested in World War II, and I've heard you talk about the Church of Nazism and some of the things that you've gone over today. But really, the main reason why I wanted to have you on because I see you speak out all the time online when you hear people labeling others as Nazis, and this is like a thing that seems to be popular nowadays, is just to call people that you disagree with either a Nazi, or I guess on the right they would call them, I don't know, liberal snowflakes or whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
it seems
Right.
like people on the left nowadays, not everybody, but there's a lot of people on the left who basically, anytime anybody disagrees with them or anybody who's a little bit right of center is like a racist, a bigot, or a Nazi. And I've seen that you point out all the time, even though you're actually not really a right-wing person yourself, you're a little bit more on the left, your own personal views.
Yeah.
But
The
you don't-
audience that's hearing, my favorite president is Teddy Roosevelt. So
Yeah.
that'll give you an idea.
well,
And I
Teddy,
like Bobby Kennedy.
Teddy was a Republican,
Yep.
but
But he was also left wing.
a little bit. I mean, I guess the environmental parks, I don't know, the environmental parks
Yep.
creation of those
And he
is
broke
pretty,
up monopolies.
what would
That
be
was his big
considered
thing.
left-wing, trust busting, yeah.
Yep.
But you don't like people labeling other people as Nazis.
No.
And so
No.
why don't you tell me why don't you like it, and what bothers you about it, and what do you think the danger is?
The danger is that's what Hitler did. That's the thing is to get the people motivated to be hateful of another group of people. You rile them up and you rile them up and you stoke the flames of hatred to the point where they don't care. Now they think people deserve it. You have no idea how many people I've spoken to that said people deserve to be beat up by Antifa.
Yeah.
Even if they're not Nazis.
You don't think
They-
it's okay to hit people in the head with bike locks or punch
Right.
people in the street or beat somebody up because they have an American flag? That's not okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what these people are saying. It's okay. And it's like, no, it's not okay. But they're Nazis. No, you don't get to label them Nazis. Just because
Yeah.
you don't like them. You can disagree with somebody and not hate them.
Or
that's
it's
just-
funny that some of the people that they call Nazis are alt-right, which alt-right people, from my understanding, I've read through some of I've watched some videos and I've read some stuff by alt-right people, and they're typically white nationalists, and they it's funny that there's lots of people out there, and even in the media, like labeling people alt-right that are, like, let's say Jewish, for instance. And
Right.
it's funny. It's like, all right, this person's conservative and they're Jewish or whatever, but you're calling them a Nazi or they're calling them, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, the biggest fear is who are the members of the alt-right? They're young men. The left wants the youth. They were capturing the youth, and they won the youth over, so they thought. But now there's a backlash because of political correctness. But not even as much that. It's the social justice warriors, the fanaticism, and you're going to get a backlash.
Yeah.
That's the backlash, is the alt-right. Now, I mean, you
I
can't go
see the
around.
alt-right as kind of a backlash against a lot of the anti-white sentiment that's out there. Like, you may not. I see it all the time, like different news articles, or all the time online. You see all these memes, or you see articles posted about, like, basically attacking white people, and basically. I think that, the rise of the alt-right and all these ideologies is basically a reaction to some of the anti-white sentiment. And there's a lot of people out there like, oh, well, what did I do? I'm a white person, and I think that some of the I don't condone the racism or the white supremacy or any of that stuff.
Yep, and that's exactly it. It's a reaction to it. Donald Trump is a reaction. When I've talked to Republicans, they're angry that Republicans never fought back. Let me give you an example. A big part of Trump's rise, Mitt Romney. And the moment when Candy Crowley interfered in the debate, when Romney rightly accused Obama of saying something, which he did. The fact checkers looked at it later about how he worded the word terrorist. Candy Crowley, who's the moderator, defended Obama. So not only was Romney debating Obama, he was debating the moderator, and she was taking his time by having to debate him.
Actually, I remember, I think it was Joe Biden who went out and he was telling people that, or telling African Americans that Mitt Romney wanted to put them back in chains.
Right.
Which was
well, I think it was the Republicans in general. They'll have you all back in chains, and it's just like, wow, that's kind of.
Mitt Romney was a pretty squeaky clean guy.
Yep.
I mean, whether you agree with his politics or not, but he's a pretty square, boring guy. I don't know. They tried to paint him as some sort of evil, evil right-wing devil or something.
Right, like when he was speaking and they had that camera, when he said, I'm not going to go after the vote of the bottom 47%, I'm going to concentrate on everybody else because the bottom 47 don't pay any federal taxes. That wasn't anything racist. He wasn't calling them names. He was just saying that people who are on government assistance are not going to vote for a guy who says he wants to cut government assistance, which that makes sense, which I kind of find funny because, according to the media, Republicans are all these dumb, poor people on welfare. But wait a minute, Republicans vote for less welfare. So, I mean, they got to make up their mind. What are they? Because when Bush was president, Republicans were all these rich people that were voting in because he gets the tax breaks. And then when Obama's in, Republicans are stupid, toothless rednecks who are poor and on welfare. They got to make up their mind.
So you see, like, the alt-right and some of these right-wing extremists are kind of a reaction to some of the PC culture. And I see a lot of people on the left nowadays remind me of the religious right of the 90s, and kind of authoritarian in a way, and telling people what they can do. And where do you see Antifa in all of this? Like, why is Antifa like grown so much over the past, basically since Donald Trump's campaign and election.
Right.
You saw the rise of the alt-right, which was sort of a reaction to, identity politics, right? And PC culture. Where does Antifa fall into that? Why do you think Antifa's grown?
I think Antifa was groomed out of the constant propaganda against whites and about Trump being a racist. This is early in the campaign because Antifa were attacking people during the campaign. Yeah. And they were attacking Trump supporters. And I tried to explain it to a friend of mine.
Smashing windows and hitting people's vehicles or punching people in the face, stuff like that.
Right.
Pepper spraying people.
Right, but these are a lot of angry people, and I think this is the product of what happens when you give everybody a participation trophy. Nobody knows how to handle losing. Everybody's a winner. But when you get out of school, you lose, you don't get a job, you can't afford to support yourself. Now what do? They're not teaching kids how to get out of a bad situation. Like if a kid stays back, they don't let them stay back anymore. They'll let the kid fail in school because he can go to summer school and get himself out of the predicament. So that teaches your kid no child is that stupid that they're going to get all F's. A D will give you a passing grade. And let me just say this. Would you go to a doctor that you knew passed his medical school with just D's? I don't think anyone would want a doctor, but I'm sure that the medical profession, they probably have to pass with a better grade than a D, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, but still, like these kids they need to learn that they can get out of a situation. They're not dumb. Kids that have a learning disability, they put them in special needs class, so we take care of them. But these kids are not used to failing, and there's one thing that they always target. If you ever notice, they always say bread and circus, that it's sports, and they usually target football. Why is that? Not all people watch sports. Most men do, but not even most of my male friends don't. Maybe no, maybe half of them don't. And there are people that they don't watch sports. So why don't you call TV bread and circus? But what sports teaches you how to overcome something. Like if your team loses, what does the coach do? He gets you guys together and he teaches you we got to prepare better for the next game. Look at football with Bill Belichick. He's always on to Miami or on to Chicago. He doesn't even discuss the losing.
Yeah.
So that's what sports does. And sports also teaches you how to shake the other team's hand when they beat you, how to be a good sport. So there's things that sports can teach you. Sports is kind of an enemy to people that want to control you and to make you not be able to better yourself.
And before we go back to the, basically we were going down the path of why you're worried about people labeling others as Nazis, but what we were just talking about as far as Antifa and the alt-right and some of the the clashing online between people on the left and the right. That's actually the whole reason I created this particular show or this channel. I just want to have discussions with people, and have talks with people, even people that I disagree with, and I would like to have people on that disagree with each other to have talks. And I'm just basically sick of people attacking each other and shutting down and not listening. And I think that no matter who you're talking to, there's something that you can learn from them, and that people have reasons why they believe certain things. And that's sort of why I'm having you on here, and you and I agree on a lot. We don't agree on everything, but I'm having you on here is kind of to have a discussion with you, and this is what people should do, is just talk about things.
Yeah, and I think the seeds of Antifa were how these kids were raised, and they weren't, because look how young they are. They don't teach civics anymore, and then civics teaches you a lot of things about politics too, left wing and right wing. Left wing does not mean liberal. Right wing does not mean conservative.
Yeah.
Right wing means they want things to stay the same. The further right you want, the further back in time you'd like to go back. And left, they want change. Doesn't mean left wing, because nobody has a problem with the communists being called left wing. You had more freedom under Hitler's Germany than you did under Stalin's Russia.
Yeah.
And you are allowed to own property under Hitler. Socialism, there's private ownership of the corporation, of businesses and private property, except the government, the government owns the resources, and they also have high regulations. That's socialism. And then the more regulations, they're more control, the more hardcore socialists they are. So there's things that people need to learn, and just do not take politics personal. I always steal a line from The Godfather: "Bada bing, it's not personal, it's business." Well, it's not personal, it's politics.
Yeah.
And if you learn more about it, like fascism, it's a totalitarian government. It was no different than Stalin's government. But who was our ally? How do you tell people in America, because the communists, nobody liked the communists, that we're allied with the communists? They're the same type of government that's in Nazi Germany. How do you tell it? Well, you call one a fascist, and that's it. Fascism is actually the name of Mussolini's political party, and he was socialist too. He was the propagandist for his socialist party, but he, much like Hitler, felt the socialists didn't take things far enough on a nationalistic and military thing. That's how they separate. But yeah, so that's what I see with civics. And They're not teaching kids this, so it's easy to kind of warp their mind and teach them hate. You can always disagree with somebody politically. Don't make it personal.
Yeah.
I have friends that I disagree with politically. I have friends that are disagreeing with me, and including you, about the football players taking a knee. I have no problem with them taking a knee. It's a peaceful protest, but a lot of my friends say, well, hey, you're at work, you can't do it, so the work does have a right to say no, which that is true. But I'd rather see the football players do that than having streets blocked off or buildings set on fire or cars set on fire or overturned. I'd rather see this. So I do have differences with friends, but you never make it personal.
So why? What do you think is the problem with? We'll go back to the Nazi label. Why does it bother you so much, and what do you think might happen as a result of people labeling each other, and people painting that brush on people on social media, or not even social media, just hey, it's okay to punch a Nazi.
Well, because the Nazis are the most vile thing you could be called. So if you can label somebody something, you can excuse anything that happens to that person, even if they're not a Nazi. And that's where I draw the line. You don't attack people for having a different point of view. Like, I don't know, it's just... I don't know. They want violence. This is to excuse the future violence that's going to happen.
Well, you see, like on college campuses, they have these people come on to have talks. They invite conservative or right-wing speakers, or even people like Jordan Peterson, who I don't think is extremely right-wing. And
Nope.
you have people protesting outside or causing a ruckus, causing a riot outside the school.
Or calling Ben Shapiro a Nazi. Yes, the Jewish Nazi. Yeah, that works.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with him on some things. I disagree with him on a lot of things. But I don't think that he's a Nazi or a racist or anything like that. And it's kind of funny because obviously he's an Orthodox Jew. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. That's just an excuse, because there's this philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard, has a quote: "If you can label me, you negate me."
yeah.
And that's it. You label people. They could label them snowflakes. But yeah, who gets triggered when something's said bad about Trump? Or when Alec Baldwin does a Trump skit on Saturday Night Live, which I find hilarious, they get triggered by that. So where's the difference? You're two sides of the same coin. And that's what I try to explain to people. You're no different. You're on the opposite political view, but you behave the same.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of what I would like to do here. I just want to have people on and have talk, and I hope that people who disagree with me or disagree with you or disagree with anybody else, I hope that people will come on and have a talk with me. I have a few other people lined up already to come on and have a conversation, and this is what I'm trying to combat. I want people to be able to talk if they disagree. In fact, the more you disagree with me, the better. We'll have a, I'm probably a little more on the conservative leaning, conservative libertarian, whatever you want to call it. I'm pretty liberal on social issues. Like, I don't care if gay people want to get married, and I don't think that smoking marijuana or doing drugs should be a crime. I don't think prostitution's a crime. I'm pretty libertarian on those types of issues, and I'm more of a small government guy. But you want to have, some left-wing socialist people on. There's I'll have a Bernie person on to have a talk with me.
Yep, and that's it. That's how you get to know the person. Like with me, I talk to people on the right, but I love history. I find that people on the right love history. And I can reason with them more than I can reason with people on my side of the political aisle. All I tell them is, hey, I agree with your policies, but just I despise your methods. I despise the demonizing people, the violence, the squashing of the First Amendment, free speech. I don't care. If Alex Jones to say he wants to go out and speak, he's a nutcase. I can debunk him any day. Why are you afraid of him? I mean, that's what it screams, and it makes him look like some of his conspiracy theories might be true.
Well, it turns out that they were making the frogs gay.
What's that?
I said it turned out that they were making the frogs gay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's out there. He's so easy. He's funny.
I've listened to him a few times in the past, just like for entertainment. But he's crazy, and he's always yelling and angry. But
yeah, I've seen clips of him too.
I mean, I think
ripping his shirt open and screaming and crying. I'm like, wow.
Social media platforms and YouTube, I mean, I think they can do whatever they want, but I don't know if it's a good precedent to set that you should silence people just because they don't agree with you, or if you don't like what they're saying. I mean, I don't think that's a good enough
Right.
reason to, shut them off on your platform. I mean, if Twitter and YouTube and Facebook want to do that, I mean, I think it's their prerogative. But, that's the libertarian in me basically saying, hey, they can do what they want. If they don't want them on the platform, they should be able to take them off. I don't think it's a good idea, though. I think that you're setting a precedent that it's kind of anti-First Amendment in spirit. Even if it's not a violation of the First Amendment, I think it's anti-First Amendment in spirit.
Right, and especially with somebody that's easily debunked. I mean, I think he's the easy, low-hanging fruit. I think they're going to march their way up, because even somebody who isn't intellectual, and I do like about 40% of what he puts out, Dennis Prager.
Yeah.
There's nothing racist about him. He's an intellectual, as far as I'm concerned. They're blocking some of his videos. They're also blocking him from making money off of his videos.
Yeah. I've watched a lot of his videos on YouTube, and I've seen some of the stuff on Facebook. I've never really seen anything by him that I thought was extremely provocative or offensive or anything like that.
Nope.
I mean, they're just pretty much a mainstream conservative opinion, pretty much. It's mainstream conservative ideas, and I agree with some of the stuff that he puts out. Some of it I don't. I'm not a religious right-wing type of person, so some of the people on the right who constantly talk about God or religion, that's kind of where I start to step away from them ideologically, but I don't think anything that Dennis Prager puts out is offensive.
No, but yet they're trying to silence him. So Alex Jones was the low-hanging fruit that nobody really cares about. That's the first step. Let's see the reaction of America. Are they going to defend him? I mean, when you got Bill Maher defending him, you know what, Bill Maher, there's things that I could knock him out for, when he called Sarah Palin's Down syndrome son a retard on quite a few occasions. I'd like to knock him out, but I'll say this: he does stick to his guns, and he does have principles. And if it's somebody that he despises, he's even defended Rush Limbaugh when Limbaugh got in trouble for that. Sandra Fluck. When he got in trouble for that, it was Bill Maher that went to his defense, said, I hate what he said, but I will defend him, that he has the right to say it. Do not shut him down. Don't boycott.
I've seen Bill Maher do this quite a bit. I've seen Bill Maher. He has on people frequently that he disagrees with. And I think I don't agree with Bill Maher on a lot. I agree with him on some things, but especially the free speech stuff. He's always been anti-political correctness, which is where him and I agree. I'm not very into the PC culture, and he had on recently. I think he had on Jordan Peterson, who I'm a fan of, and he had Jordan Peterson on, and he was polite to him. He was nice, and he actually said he agreed with a lot of what Jordan Peterson had to say, and I wonder if that made a lot of people on the left go a little bit nuts.
I saw an article about it, but they would never show the entire clip. They didn't show his entire. So it makes me think that it was probably really good, because they didn't show hardly any of it.
He basically said, I think everything that comes out of this guy's mouth is common sense.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what Jordan Peterson says is common sense. He just has a flowery way of saying it. And I think he puts out a message that a lot of people aren't used to in today's age, which is a message of basically taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yep, like a friend of mine, she said that he was a Nazi as well, because I gave a list of people who did Antifa go after that wasn't a white supremacist or Nazi. Then I gave 7 articles of 7 separate incidences, and she labeled them Nazis anyways. Then she called him a pseudo-intellectual. She goes, well, maybe he's kind of an intellectual. I'm like, yeah, he's a professor.
I mean, the guy taught at Harvard. The guy taught at Harvard. He teaches at University of Toronto. He used to teach at Harvard. I mean, he was a clinician. Like, he actually worked with people one-on-one. And I mean, whether you agree with him or not, he's a pretty smart guy.
Right. Like, there's a guy, Mark Lamont Hill. He's a black guy. He's usually on MSNBC or CNN, and he's a professor, I think maybe Columbia, but he's young. He's probably in his late 30s by now. I disagree with a lot of what he says. He race baits a lot, but he's very intelligent. So I wouldn't go around and say, oh, this guy's an idiot. No, he's not an idiot. He's highly intelligent. So I will listen to what he has to say because of his intelligence. Then I can agree or disagree with him after what he says.
I always felt that way about Ben Carson. which I thought he's a brilliant guy, but I don't really agree with him on a lot of things. But he's he seems like a really smart guy. I mean, the guy he's a surgeon, and he.
All I got to say is, before he got into politics, he explained everything in all his interviews. He was a brilliant speaker. Oh, and then when he goes to campaign, whoever his campaign manager is, now you need to say things this way, and he sounded like an idiot during the campaign, like he's fallen asleep, and the pyramids were granaries, and it's like, what? This is not the Ben Carson that I remember.
I remember him from when he was on Fox, seeing clips of him from Fox News and some other mainstream media shows where he would come on and talk about his opinion. I always thought he was articulate and he sounded like a really smart guy to me.
Yeah, because Hannity had him on with Frank Lutz, and his audience, they said, we like him because he doesn't speak like a politician. He speaks direct. He doesn't use politician language, and he's intelligent, and he makes sense. And then as soon as he got into the political arena, it all changed. He became the political speaker, and he sounded like a buffoon.
Yeah,
it was sad to see. But that's what politics is. It's a circus. It's all theater.
Well, we elected a clown, right? So.
Yeah. I don't think he'll be running for re-election. I know a lot of people tell me he's going to run. I'm like, he doesn't like being criticized. Like you pointed out earlier, he likes to be liked. He likes approval. He likes to be complimented.
Nobody had a problem with him before he ran for president. Nobody, I mean, he's always been kind of a character. People liked him. He was on TV. People, singing songs or hip-hop songs about him. And he was, an icon. But,
and now all of a sudden he's Hitler incarnate. Like, wow.
No, I don't. I just think he's
amazing.
I just think he's an idiot sometimes, and he doesn't. Oh, yeah. He doesn't think before he speaks. He just blurts out whatever he wants to say, and I think people misinterpret the way he behaves, and they think that because he's uncouth and because of the way he speaks, that he has some sort of evil intent, and because he's racially insensitive, that means that he's automatically some sort of bigot. He might be, I don't know, but I don't think that he even thinks about it that far. I think that he just says whatever the hell he wants to say. His verbal diarrhea just comes out of his mouth.
Yep.
I don't even think he's some brilliant mastermind. I just think he's an egotist. He likes to be liked, and he says whatever the hell he wants.
Like I told somebody earlier, like when I guess he made a comment about McCain's death. I didn't read it yet. The person said it was short, but it was actually well done. And I'm like, somebody must have wrote it for him then, because he has the eloquence of a fart. And that's what I think of him, with his speaking ability. But then again,
well, you see interviews of him when he was younger, and it seemed like I don't know, maybe just because he's older, but I've seen interviews from 20, 30 years ago, and he didn't seem like he was as bad at public speaking as he is now. It seemed like he used to actually he was a lot more charming back then. Like if you watch interviews from him in the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. I was like, he seems like a nice guy. And now when he talks, it's just, it's like... But,
yep. Angry old man, that's what he kind of talks like, but,
And he's a Nazi, right?
Oh, yeah. According to ANTIFA in the mainstream media, because if somebody called Obama a Nazi, the media would be having a fit. All I say is call it even. Yeah. Is he a nice guy? Not really. Is Obama eloquent? Obama's a great speaker, especially when he's reading a teleprompter. He's a fantastic one.
Driving me crazy was the whole, children being separated from their parents, and everybody just automatically bought into the narrative that it was something that was new and that it was basically Trump's fault. And it's Trump's fault in the sense that they have a stronger or a harsher immigration policy, and they're not under Obama. They had a policy of catch and release, where they'd catch people and let them go. Right. Whereas Donald Trump's administration is actually prosecuting people coming over the border illegally. And that's why it's being separated. He's actually
enforcing the border laws, the immigration laws.
I had to explain to people that it was happening under Obama as well, that the same thing, they basically, there's a law in place that the way it is now, the government has to separate the parents from the children because of the laws on the books. And if people in Congress are flipping out about it, Congress has to pass a law to change it, because the
Right.
president can't. The president can't just pass anything he wants. And
Right,
it was going on,
and then they blame
all
Obama.
the
Like they show
pictures that came
pictures of
out.
Obama with the children in the cages to say that it's Trump,
Yeah.
but it was from the Obama era. And then they like, oh, wait a minute. Well, it doesn't count. Obama was gentle about it.
Yeah.
He didn't separate families. So I asked somebody, so as long as the kid comes over alone, it's okay to put him in the dog cages? And then they just don't respond. I'm like, well, I'd like to know the answer.
Or they have a lot of people who are caught using kids to come over the border and pretending to be their parents or pretending to be whatever.
I mean, even Huffington Post a few years ago in 2014 had an article that they never used Obama's name. They just said the children that were released into child traffickers.
Yeah.
And they had it, but they never put the blame on Obama. Anything that happened during 2008 to 2015 or 2016 was never Obama's fault. And his name never got linked to anything bad.
I believe Huffington Post was also the website that put out the article talking about the percentage of people being raped coming over the border.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when people were criticizing what Trump was saying about people being raped coming over the border. And a few months before he had said that, I think it was Huffington Post who put out an article basically talking about how I think it was like 80% of women coming over the border are raped by traffickers, like people or smugglers. What do we call them? Like the coyotes, people sneaking people over the border.
Right.
They basically the women coming over the border would actually take birth control before they were traveling because they knew that it was going to happen, which is pretty disgusting.
Wow.
And I thought it was weird because I looked up the article and I showed it to people. Well, I'm like, there was a big problem with people getting raped coming over the border. People coming over illegally. These women coming from Central America and Mexico are being violated and attacked. And I don't know. I think Donald Trump talked about it in a very uncouth way. But I think people were generalizing about what he said, or basically extrapolating it and saying, "Oh, well, he means all Mexicans are this or all Mexicans are that." And
right.
I don't think that's what he was trying to say. I think he was talking about those articles that have been published about the rates of people being raped coming over the border.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's part of it. And you do hear the stories of the illegal, some of them raping people, but yeah, the illegal immigrants, they had studies on it. Like, it's half the crime rate committed by immigrants well, that's for the regular, like legal immigrants commit half the number of crimes percentage-wise as American citizens. The illegal immigrants is about 25 to 30% lower than American citizens. So even the illegal immigrants are not committing crimes even to the point where Americans are. Most of those people are trying to flee a really bad situation. They're trying to flee the violence and poverty of their countries. They're not coming here to crush American way of life. But you do have to do it the legal way because it's not fair to those who waited on a list. It's not fair to them.
No, and I do think there's a lot of businesses that take advantage of the cheap labor as well. I mean, there's plenty of people who have an incentive to keep people here illegally because, they don't have to pay them what they would pay a citizen.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, so I think that we should enforce the laws. I just like for those people to not be talked about as badly because they're in a bad situation. I feel sorry for them, and it's tough because hey, even if you have a child and they want a toy and the guy has their child, their heart set on it, and you have to say no, but you have to say no even though you're inside you want to give them that toy, but you can't afford it. So it's a weird comparison, but still, I'm like,
but isn't
have some compassion for these people.
Isn't labeling somebody an illegal or illegal immigrant the same thing as the Nazis singling out the Jews and putting armbands on them? That's the same thing, right?
Right. Yeah, in a way it is because they're degrading them. You can say, well, this person is here illegally, we got to get them back. But don't have it's the venom that they cause this and they cause that, all these crimes. The truth is they don't. But is it true? Did they commit a crime? Oh, they are criminals in a sense because they broke the immigration law. But that's the crime that they committed. You know, it's not like a crime like robbery or rape or drug dealing. They're not the monsters that they're being painted out to be. So yeah, and it's similar. The right wing does it too. Not just the left.
Yeah. So, before I let you go, to go back real quick. So basically, to sum up, the conversation that we had. Obviously, you're very interested about World War II, and you're fascinated about the tactics and the things that the Nazis did. And in fact, I think I should have you on again sometime to talk about the Church of Nazism, because I don't really know much about that, and it's very interesting. But I guess the point of this conversation is you shouldn't call people Nazis.
No.
At least not very lightly, unless they're actually a Nazi. And they're walking around saying Zig Heil.
Because I've actually met people that were Holocaust survivors, and my biggest thrill was meeting a woman. Her name is Ava Slosh. She was the teenage girl that lived with Anne Frank in the attic. Her mother actually ran into Otto Frank, Anne Frank's father, after the war and in the early 50s, and they got married. So she's Anne Frank's stepsister. But then when I went there thinking, okay, it's her stepsister, that's great. But she was actually in that attic, and she had a big discussion, and we talked about, stuff about the Nazis. And she met Joseph Mengele, and yeah, it's not a pretty picture. But
did you see that article that came out a few months back about, I guess they discovered that Anne Frank wrote a bunch of dirty jokes in her diary?
Yes.
I thought that was pretty funny.
I got it, because people are people. Because when I show my friends old Marx Brothers movies and they asking about the joke, I'll give you one scenario is Animal Crackers. Groucho was a safari guy, and the line was this: last year we went to Africa to take some pictures of the native girls, but they weren't developed, so we're going back in a couple of weeks. And then he does his eyeball thing. My friend laughed at the joke. Then like 10 seconds later, she was like, "Hey, wait a minute." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Did he mean the pictures or the girls?" And I'm like, "That's known as a double entendre. What do you think?"
Joke.
People always made dirty jokes since the beginning. The guy that was a comedian, but a philosopher comedian, was a Roman guy named Juvenile, and that's where you get the term juvenile delinquent, because he acted like a child. He was so immature. That's where the name Juvenile comes into. It was the name of a guy who loved to tell dirty jokes, and he got banned from Rome doing it.
Yeah. All right, Tom. I think that's all the time I have for today, but I appreciate you coming on and having a conversation with me. I think I learned a little bit. You seem to be a little bit more knowledgeable about World War II than I am. But I think we just kind of I wanted to drive home the point that you had made many times online, is basically that we need to be careful about just throwing labels around, especially if people don't understand the gravity of those labels. And I think that if you or anybody who happens to listen to this, if you're seeing people online calling other people Nazis or calling people, throwing these labels around at people, or if you see Antifa and they're trying to punch people in the face, that you should do something about it. You should, say something.
Yeah, exactly, because there's no need. If you don't need to make politics personal. I said there's tolerance. What happened to the tolerance on the left? And then I get the responses from my fellow left-wingers is, oh, I got to tolerate a Nazi? And it's like, wait a minute, no one's talking about Nazis. You're generalizing up anybody who disagrees with you as being a Nazi. So you don't get to play that game. I don't need to. I have let my political positions are left-wing for social, and I'm a moderate when it comes to the economy. I understand laissez-faire does not work. We had that before, and we had child labor laws, and you had books written by Upton St. Clair, like The Jungle, because of all the work conditions. We had that.
We can have a talk about regulations some other time, but...
Right. But yeah, exactly. So it's just,
Yeah. All right, Tom. Yep. I appreciate you coming on and having a conversation with me. I'll have you back on again soon. You like to talk. I like to talk.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
And just have a great day, Tom.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Well, that was Tom Carreiro. He obviously has a lot to say about World War II, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. Have him on again sometime. Thank you. Good night.